greatest sports debate show on the internet.
I will take my victory lap now because who was the one that was saying the Buffalo Bills window is closed? Oh yeah, that's right. It was me.
Championship rings. Starring Brandon Lewis.
Wait a minute, who's the one that didn't see Brandon Cooks clearly has the ball in his hand, goes down to the ground with one knee on the ground, and then magically they say, it's an interception!
And Georgia.
Honestly, I'd rather watch AHL All-Star stuff than the NBA All-Star game.
Begins now.
You're muted, Josh.
Brandon, I will tell you what, I don't think we've seen a crazier single day on the sports calendar than what we had on Tuesday, March 10th, 2026. I am here to say that might be one of, if not the craziest days on the sports calendar ever. It felt like you look this way, there's news. You look this way, there's news. It felt like it was coming at you from all directions, whether it was the NBA or the NFL. Something was happening, and you're like, oh, I got to hear about that. Wait, no, I got to hear about that. What the hell?
It was an omen because this week was the 6-year anniversary of the COVID-19 pandemic. On this day, today actually, March 12th, 2026, was the day that we found out that the conference tournaments for the NCAA were canceled because of the pandemic. It was maybe the most wildest week in sports history. And 6 years later, as it sort of all falls on the same day of the week, the sports world just said, you know what? Let's make things crazy.
Yeah. Because we had the second highest scoring game in NBA history. We had a trade where one team got cold feet and said, nah, we don't want to do it. We had a potential NBA Finals preview, and we're getting another one tonight. It was nuts.
And don't forget, we had USA falling in the World Baseball Classic to Italy, of all teams.
I'm telling you, like, the sports machine does not stop turning. Even, like, with all this off-season stuff. Once free agency hit, it was like, that person's going to this team. That person's going to this team. Oh, we have a trade.
No, I told you before, my favorite shows that we do are actually not during the season. They are literally this month of March. My favorite shows to do are sort of the what ifs, the anticipation, the talk about everything. So we're going to start tonight by hitting the big notes of NFL free agency. Of course, we cannot cover every single move that every team made because we would be here for 5 hours. But the biggest headline was obviously, so Maxx Crosby was a Raven, and then he wasn't. The Ravens put out a statement saying that it's because he failed his physical. The Raiders did not put that out in their statement. Many in the NFL circles believe the Ravens just felt, like they got cold feet, and it is partially backed up because the very next day they agreed to a contract with Trey Henderson for $112 million.
This whole situation, it's one of the most confusing I've ever seen because the Raiders thought they had this trade in place, and they go out and make a bunch of moves in free agency, and we start looking at them like, okay, they're starting to turn things around. They go and get Quay Walker from the Green Bay Packers. They go out and sign your guy, Nakobe Dean. And you're like, okay, they're surrounding the presumptive number 1 overall pick, Fernando Mendoza, with a decent team. Not one that I don't think that's going to compete for a Super Bowl, but maybe one that could sneak in as a wild card potentially. I don't think fight for the division, but possibly wild card. And now I'm like, I don't know what to make of this. Because here's the thing. Again, the Raiders, they acted like this trade was going to happen. Nothing was going to happen. They probably were putting plans in place of like, now we have 2 first-round picks. What are we going to do with those? Like I said, they go out and spend all this money on free agency, and now Maxx Crosby is back in their building.
So here's the other thing. Maxx Crosby yesterday on X posted the GIF of The Undertaker coming out of the coffin and basically saying, hey, Raider Nation, I'm back. There's a lot of speculation out there. Everybody's saying that's not true. The Raiders are going to trade him. The Raiders went ahead and they did sign all of those free agent TOs, including getting Tyler Linderbaum, the greatest contract for an offensive lineman, maybe in the history of the NFL, at $27 million a year for a center to anchor the offensive line for Fernando Mendoza. The Raiders can keep Maxx Crosby and still be, in that salary cap under the cap. If I'm the Raiders, honestly, Josh, Maxx Crosby is a pro's pro. He obviously, it went south last year with what I would argue an old Raiders regime. This is not the same Raiders. It's a new general manager, obviously a new head coach in Kubiak. They're going to have a new quarterback in Fernando Mendoza. There's reports out there they could even go ahead and sign Kirk Cousins potentially to either start for the first few games of the season and then hand it to Mendoza or just back up Mendoza. I'm telling you right now, if I'm the Raiders, I keep Maxx Crosby on my roster. He's going to be a Raider. He is a top 2 to 3 edge rusher in the league. I use my other picks in the draft. I'll go get another receiver. I'll go get maybe another offensive lineman, another defensive lineman. I think Maxx Crosby, the way I look at it now, he's almost like an addition to this all-new Raiders team. And last year, we saw the Patriots, and I know Drake May was in his second year, but we saw them go from worst team in the league to the Super Bowl. 2 years ago, we saw the Commanders with a rookie quarterback in Jaden Daniels go from one of the worst teams in the league, terrible ownership, to the NFC Championship game. I'm not sitting here today saying the Raiders are going to make the AFC Championship game, but I'm telling you right now, it's going to depend on what they do in the draft. I don't think it's out of the neck of the woods if the Raiders win the AFC West next season.
The AFC West is going to be fascinating. I think you can make an argument it's either the AFC West or the NFC West that's going to be the best division in football.
I completely actually disagree with that. I think there's one answer to that question, and to me, it's not even close. I think the best division in football is the NFC North.
God, you can make an argument for any of the three. I really believe that. I really do.
Well, I think the argument is Arizona is not going to be good next year. Vegas, again, I think is going to be pretty good, though we don't know. If Minnesota, and they're rumored to potentially go for Kyler Murray, they have a top 3 defense. If Kyler Murray plays the way that he played at the start of his Arizona career with Kevin O'Connell, if Minnesota is the worst team in that division, excuse me, they won 9 games last year with J.J. McCarthy.
Yeah. Which, if the Vikings do sign Kyler, I think that signals the end of J.J. McCarthy's time in Minnesota. But we can address that in a separate topic another day. In terms of this, though, I think this has major consequences, not just for the Ravens and the Raiders, but think about all the other teams affected. Dallas, Chicago. There's probably other teams who are interested in Maxx Crosby that, like Buffalo, for example, Tampa Bay, maybe. And again, how do we know that with Maxx Crosby going back on their books, they're going to be able to keep the likes of Tyler Linderbaum, Walker, Nakobe Dean?
Because they have $130 million in cap space, and they only spend like 70 or 80 million of it. So they add the cap space because you have to be at a certain cap number by the start of the year. So if they didn't, they would have had to let some of those guys go already. They signed all the guys they agreed to.
Fair, but it seemed like they went out and did this spending spree because they did not think Maxx Crosby was going to be on their books.
Exactly. But again, you can spend a little bit more when you have more money to spend, obviously. But they do have, excuse me, the capability to keep Maxx Crosby. I would, and I do want to switch gears to the Ravens side of things because, some people have come out and they have said that, Baltimore does feel like a little bit of a dysfunctional organization now. Maybe John Harbaugh got out of it at the right time, seeing the train running down the tracks. Was that I think the Ravens felt like they could get Trey Anderson and keep an extra first round pick. He's not the player that Max Crosby is. Certainly not. But he is a very productive player. And Baltimore is going to need good defensive talent on the cheap because Lamar Jackson's going to cost so much. They're going to extend him this offseason. And now they need to rebuild that offensive line with Linderbaum and some others leaving. So I think the Ravens are a good team. But as I told you a year ago, as we headed into the season, I thought it was going to be a slow decline for Baltimore. I did not think that Maxx Crosby was the missing piece to get Baltimore over the hump against Kansas City and Buffalo. I don't think Trey Anderson is either. And so from that perspective, I get why Baltimore got cold feet.
My whole thing is Baltimore knew he was having, I think it was knee issues, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, he got surgery.
Yeah.
As soon as the regular season ended.
Yeah. And I believe he had just come off of crutches like a week ago or something.
Correct.
So,
remember, they did this very similar to the Eagles at the trade deadline. Remember, my Eagles traded for Jair Alexander, and then he all of a sudden immediately retired. You look at those two deals. Is that something that's going to play in where maybe front offices are hesitant to work with Baltimore moving forward?
I would be. If I'm a team, like, I would be extremely hesitant to make a deal with Baltimore because they seem to back off their word or back. You know what I'm trying to say there.
Well, they've always been a stable organization. They have always fared well. These two actions are un-Baltimore-like. I disagree with the notion that some people are trying to throw out there that now they're dysfunctional. You're not a dysfunctional franchise if you back out of a deal. You just back out of a deal because maybe, it didn't work out the way you thought. Again, I think the Trey Anderson development played a factor. I absolutely do. I don't buy the fact that he failed his physical because I think that other teams have medical records. And again, you're from Ohio. I understand it. I know how this is going to sit with Browns fans and Steelers fans and Bengals fans. I don't think that this deal would have made the Ravens significantly better. I think Maxx Crosby is better than Trey Anderson, certainly. But Baltimore has a lot of issues now. They have a lot of holes. They can fill those holes in the draft, but I still would not call them the favorites today in the AFC North.
Oh, I would. The Steelers we don't know what they're going to do at quarterback. And do you really trust a wide receiver room led by DK Metcalf and Michael Pittman? I don't.
I'll tell you who I do trust. I trust a healthy Joe Burrow. Now, maybe that's my mistake. I tell you this every year. I will make the same mistake over and over again because I am insane. Every year until if they're healthy the whole year, I absolutely believe the Cincinnati Bengals are the best team in the AFC North.
And that's the thing. They don't stay healthy. Their offensive line continues to be like a turnstile at an amusement park.
Well, here's the thing, though. So does Baltimore. Lamar Jackson has been out of the lineup for 3 out of the last 5 seasons. Their offensive line now, I believe they lost the right tackle as well, both guards, as well as Linderbaum. And, Jesse Minter's a very good defensive coach. We don't know how that offense is going to change without Todd Monken and John Harbaugh there.
Yeah. And with the Cleveland Browns, it sounds like number 4 could be the starting quarterback again. Lord help us if that's the case.
For the record, you mentioned Pittsburgh. I do really like the Pippen signing, and I think that they are all in on bringing back Aaron Rodgers. Mike McCarthy's an offensive coach. Pippen's there. Metcalf's there. TJ Watt is still going to be there. They bring back Cam Hayward. Their secondary is pretty decent. Joey Porter Jr. is back. I think Jalen Ramsey, I believe, will be back. Don't discount Pittsburgh.
No, I'm not. But I don't trust Mike McCarthy as head coach. He didn't do anything in Dallas.
He's a bump on a log, but he did win. Don't say he didn't win anything in Dallas. He did win 12 straight games 3 years in a row.
No, I wasn't going to say that. But
well, you act like he didn't accomplish anything. That's an accomplishment.
Yes, but like I didn't feel like he did anything truly significant.
He doesn't, but I'll tell you what he does do. He wins regular season games at this point in his career.
He hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2010.
Guess what? There's a lot of coaches in the league that haven't even won a Super Bowl. Again, I don't think Mike McCarthy is a special coach either, but his resume is literally the same resume as John Harbaugh and Sean Payton. Sean Payton hasn't won a Super Bowl since 2009.
And yet I trust Sean Payton more than I do Mike McCarthy.
Again, it's an optics thing because Mike McCarthy has terrible PR. That's all it is.
And it feels like when he runs the offense, that offense is set in a stone age.
All right. Well, we got to get to an offense that's going to get a lot better because Kenneth Walker goes from winning the Super Bowl, winning the Super Bowl MVP. The Seahawks say, we got Zach Charbonnet. Maybe he's coming off an injury, but we really don't want to pay you, Kenneth Walker. And he says, fine, let me go to the team that, even though they missed the playoffs a year ago, had been to 5 out of the last 7 Super Bowls. They have the Super Bowl caliber. Andy Reid, we know his history. Eric Bieniemy is back there as offensive coordinator. To me, if Patrick Mahomes is back and ready to go week 1, this is a great signing, obviously, for the Chiefs, and this is something that they have needed in their offense. Since Isaiah Pacheco got that knee injury a few years ago, he has not been the same, and their running game has not been the same. This is almost, to me, like Saquon Barkley after the Eagles had DeAndre Swift. Like, Pacheco's a good back. DeAndre Swift was a good back. He's not Kenneth Walker. Kenneth Walker, to me, will completely change the way defenses guard the Chiefs' offense. And you're bringing back Kelsey. Assume Rashid Rice will be there for a whole season, along with Xavier Worthy. If Mahomes is back, which I do think he will be, because as we've seen with Jason Tatum, young people recover faster from injuries. It's scary to think about.
Yeah. I'm definitely not writing the Chiefs obituary. And by the way, I did not do that when they missed the playoffs last season. I felt like that was just a blip on the radar.
Well, again, I think we can have a different conversation about, is the dynasty over versus are they dead as a team? Because I think that's 2 different conversations.
That I agree with. But I want to take this from the Seattle perspective because, they were using Zach Charbonnet more in the early part of the season.
Yeah.
They really didn't turn to Kenneth Walker until Charbonnet went down with that injury. And K9 gets on the scene, and you're like, why weren't you using him earlier? So from Kenneth Walker's perspective, why would I resign with the team that didn't realize how good of a running back I am until their other back went down? So,
and also, did you know this? Right before the start of their playoff run, he fired his agent. He hired a new agent as soon as they started that playoff run against San Francisco in the divisional round. So, this was coming. What I always heard going into the season, I think I told you this early in the year, Seattle reportedly liked Charbonnet's running style more for Clint Kubiak's offense, which is that outside zone, a lot of north and south downhill. And they felt like Kenneth Walker would just miss holes. Where in Kansas City, Mahomes is in the gun more than under center. They're going to run a lot more inside zone on the shotgun, which It's very difficult to go east-west, so it's going to force you to run more in between the tackles. He's a good threat out of the backfield, which Andy Reid loves to use running backs in the screen game. We know that. That's where I think that this signing will have a big impact because I think he's going to have a big year actually in the passing game. If Mahomes does come back, he's not going to have the mobility he once has. They're going to check it down to Walker. They're going to throw to Rice underneath. Kelsey will get his yards underneath. It's going to be a very hot, boom, quick passing game, run the football type of offense that Kansas City's going to implement.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see what type of quarterback Mahomes is when he comes back coming off of this injury.
True, because we've seen Aaron Rodgers and Kirk Cousins a couple years ago were not the same quarterback they were this past season.
Right. I think the quarterback we see Mahomes as this season will not be the same quarterback we see Mahomes as in 2027.
Here's the question, though. Is 60 or 70% of Mahomes still the best quarterback in the AFC West? I'm not even going to say AFC or the NFL. In that division, Fernando Mendoza, I think is going to be really good, but I don't think he's going to be great as a rookie because almost no quarterbacks are great as rookies outside of Jaden Daniels. Justin Herbert, a lot of people love Justin Herbert. Fact of the matter is, he's got a 500 record as a career quarterback. You like Bo Nix more than I do. I think this is going to be a really interesting year for Bo Nix in Denver because all of a sudden Denver went from the top dog in that division to they have not made any moves whatsoever as far as I can see.
Yeah, and Bo Nix suffered that injury, in the Buffalo game.
Yep.
So we'll see what type of quarterback he is come 2026. So the AFC West is really interesting in terms of quarterbacks. I feel like I have to give the edge to Mahomes just because, we know what we're going to get for the most part from Mahomes. I would say Bo Nix is probably number 2 on that list. I wouldn't say it's a large gap between Mahomes and Bo Nix. I feel like it's pretty even. That's my opinion. Not because Mahomes isn't great or he doesn't have all these accomplishments and accolades. I get it. I'm just talking about watching what I see from them on the field. I'm taking all the accolades.
My opinion is by the end, or I should say actually, because I think Mendoza's going to get better as 2026 goes on. By the end of the 2026 season, heading into the 2027 NFL season, assuming all 4 quarterbacks are where they are today, and assuming the Raiders take Fernando Mendoza, Bo Nix will be viewed. It's going to be a very small gap, but I think out of all 4 quarterbacks, Bo Nix will be viewed as the one who could carry his team the least. In terms of talent, that's how I think it'll be talked about.
See, I disagree with that because Herbert hasn't shown that he can carry the Chargers.
But in terms of talent, some people already think Herbert is more talented than Mahomes. You get what I'm saying?
I think so, but
meaning in terms of traits, in terms of physicality, in terms of you can carry a franchise, you are the luck of an NFL quarterback. I think Bo Nix will be viewed as an outlier because if he's as good as you think he is, he will essentially be what Sean Payton had in Drew Brees. But I don't think he's that when it comes to reading the field yet.
This is one of those conversations where I don't think there's a wrong answer. I truly don't.
This is what sports talk in March is about.
Yes, but in terms of the Chiefs offense, I think it's going to have a major impact. I do think they should go out and get Jeremiah Love, the running back from Notre Dame, as well. Because we've seen.
See, here's why I disagree with that. I don't think you pay Kenneth Walker the money they did. If they would have signed, I don't know, back to a 1-year deal, maybe like a Nick Chubb or somebody, and then they go out and they draft. Well, I'm okay with that. I don't think you give Kenneth Walker a 4-year deal over $20 million a year to then draft another running back when you have a quarterback like Mahomes.
Well, I say that because we've seen teams have success with a 2 running back system. Look at how effective Detroit was with Sonic and Knuckles.
Did they get to a Super Bowl though? Because Detroit just moved off Montgomery. Why? Because Gibbs got better. Gibbs was not at the level Kenneth Walker's at now, was not at the level Gibbs was at until last year. And once he hit that level, what have they done? They have moved off Montgomery.
True. But do you get what I'm saying, at least to a certain extent?
If you had, like if you're the Jets, if you have Geno Smith as your quarterback, if you want to pay 2 running backs, sure. Now when you're paying Mahomes, like Buffalo, I would not draft Jeremiah Love. If I was Buffalo, I have James Cook. Now when I'm paying Josh Allen, James Cook, DJ Moore, I can't pay 2 running backs. I have other positions. Kansas City's going to have to pay Worthy. They have paid Walker now at this point. So you need to use that number 9 pick on the defensive side of the ball to draft another corner to replace McDuffie or another interior defensive tackle to eventually replace Chris Jones.
And I believe they also lost Watson on the other
The
side.
safety, yeah. So again, that is what I believe the formula is in today's NFL. Pay your offense, keep your defense cheap, draft your defense, and then let them go and draft and keep replenishing.
I know McDuffie went to the Rams. Did Watson also go to the Rams?
I believe Watson went to New England, but I could be wrong.
Okay. I thought he went to the Rams as well.
You are right, actually. Watson did go to the Rams.
Okay. I really like that for the Rams. But anyway, in terms of the Chiefs, I think the play action game is going to be deadly for them now. That's where I think this move helps them the most. Yes, the running game gets a massive upgrade, but really for me, it's the play action game that really takes a giant step forward.
Speaking of play action, it could be a big part of the new San Francisco 49er offense because they have now acquired Mike Evans, who's going to essentially take that Brandon Ayuk spot, who was out all last year. And the Niners are going to cut him because there's obviously issues there. Mike Evans is going on 33 years old. He had some health issues, obviously, last year in Tampa. Until last year, he had 1,000 yards every year of his career, mostly in a passing offense, though, whether it was with Jameis Winston or Tom Brady or recently Baker Mayfield. I think this is a very interesting move from San Francisco because it is clearly a win-now move. They are clearly in win-now mode, not only in their division, but in their conference, the NFC. But also, Mike Evans has been banged up. And their best players, whether or not they keep Trent Williams or not, Trent Williams, Fred Warner's coming off an injury.
Christian McCaffrey.
They are an old team, and they are expensive in certain areas, and they're going to need to draft well. So they are basically, in my opinion, taking a page out of the Rams playbook. They're going for it, which I commend them to. It just feels like when I heard this news, I didn't go, oh my God, the Niners got Mike Evans. He's going to help them get to the Super Bowl. I went, nice move, decent piece, not a game changer. That's how I felt.
I mean, like you said, he's injury prone, so he fits right in with the 49ers because it seems like that whole team is in the emergency room.
They will either go on a deep playoff run or they will be in the top 10 in the draft. That's the way they
Yeah.
are every year.
Yep. And they still have that substation, which many people believe correlates to all their injuries. So, and Mike Evans has had plenty of hamstring issues. We'll see. I think he'll do well in that Kyle Shanahan offense. How's he going to do not getting as many touches? Because you also have George Kittle in that system. You have Christian McCaffrey, who they like to use a lot in the passing game. So Mike Evans isn't going to be the primary focus. Is he going to be all right with that?
That's the thing. He is now the third option. He may be the number one option outside of Boundary X, but you mentioned it. McCaffrey and Kittle. Shanahan's offense is not a throw the ball down the sideline to X receiver 6 times a game.
Right. And they also have Jawan Jennings, who they've recently.
And Pearsall as well, who's a young kid.
Yes. So I like it, but does it move the needle for me? Not greatly. I'm going to miss seeing him in a Tampa Bay jersey, though.
Yeah, we're gonna talk about Tampa Bay in a minute as we'll dive into the NFC South. It does feel weird. Again, Mike Evans in San Francisco is something that feels like excuse me, could happen more in Madden than it could in real life.
Yeah. It really doesn't feel like a needle mover to me.
And to me, I think the Niners should go out. They should draft another receiver because I think they need to get young at that position.
Yeah. And I just don't trust the 49ers. It feels like when they get to the playoffs, they can win a game, but can you trust them to make the deep run? I know they've made it to the Super Bowl a few times, twice. I know they've made it to the NFC Championship, but it just feels like it's either a deep playoff run or an early exit. There's no in between with this team.
Hold on. Absolutely. I am trying to look up okay, here we go. The amount of touches McCaffrey had this year. So are you ready for this number?
Oh, God.
It's a lot. The touches include running the ball and catching the ball.
Oh, boy. Wait. It's got to be at least, I'm going to say at least 500.
You're a little short. He's at 450. It's the third time he's done it in his career. So 2 years ago now, Saquon Barkley for the Eagles had over 400 touches during their Super Bowl season. What happened last year? Many people said Saquon Barkley didn't look the same. He was exhausted. He was tired. He didn't have the burst. It was too many touches. I feel like McCaffrey, who's in an injury history throughout his career, it feels like every other year, right? He has a great year, then he gets hurt. He has a great year, then he gets hurt. And by the way, Raheem Morris may be a good defensive coordinator. He's not Robert Saleh. This Niners team to me feels like they're either going to be right in the mix for the number one seed where they were a year ago, or this thing's going to fall apart by week 5.
I would lean more towards it falling apart.
All right. Well, speaking of Mike Evans' former team in the NFC South, this is the division that every year seems like every team's battling between 9-8, 8-9, and some of these teams, the Panthers and the Saints, spent big bucks. Atlanta made an interesting move at quarterback, and Tampa now, after losing Mike Evans, they did sign a couple pieces. But they feel like, to me, after going from easily the favorite to win the division going into last year to, could they possibly finish last in the division?
Yeah. I will say for the Panthers, I don't like that they lost Rico Dowdle. I thought he was a huge part of the reason why.
Wait, he left? I didn't hear this. Where did he go?
I want to say he might have gone to Pittsburgh.
So I did not hear this because I saw Kenneth Gainwell left. Again, it's so hard to track.
Yeah, he
all
went
these-
to the Steelers.
You're right. He did go to the Steelers. That's a good deal for them. 2-year deal. I like that for Pittsburgh.
So I think that's a huge loss for Carolina. Which does
are they a team that maybe trades up and goes after Jeremiah Love? Like there's a situation right there, right? You're not paying Bryce Young. Your two receivers are still cheap because McMillan's not getting paid yet. Xavier Wiggett's not getting paid yet.
Jalen Coker's not getting paid, I don't think.
Tommy Tremble's a decent tight end. They have some pieces there. Robert Hunt on the offensive line. They did pay Jalen Phillips, obviously. But to me, that's a situation where Bryce Young needs a running game. That's a team where absolutely I think you go and you get a running back if you can afford it.
Speaking of going out and getting a running back, I did not see this move coming, but I love it. The New Orleans Saints went out and signed Travis Etienne Jr., which I'll address this here shortly, but I think that's a huge loss for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I told you, I'm locking in my Super Bowl prediction, and I'm not changing it. Jaguars, Bears, Super Bowl 61.
You're not changing it now because the Jags have lost a lot of pieces. Devin Lloyd's on the move. I don't think he's signed anywhere yet, but he's not going back to Jacksonville reportedly.
As of right now, no, I'm not changing it. But I really like that move, getting Travis Etienne for New Orleans. I think he's going to play off Tyler Shuck really well. I'd like to see the Saints go out and get another wide receiver, though, because I just don't trust the Saints' current receiving core. You have Tyler Shuck, you have Travis Etienne, and what?
I mean, Olave's there. They do have to pay Olave. I'll be very interested to see, do they dangle Alvin Kamara now as a trade piece? Because I think you certainly could do that. I think Cam Jordan may be leaving, so they're going to have to replace that pass rush. But I told you last year, Tyler Shuck went from, why did the Saints pick a 28-year-old rookie out of Louisville in the second round when Shedeur Sanders was still on the board, and everybody was very confused, and a lot of people compared him to Brandon Whedon, and they went from unwatchable with Spencer Rattler as their quarterback to, wait a minute, not only do they have something here with Tyler Shuck, but Kellen Moore, did he make the right decision going to New Orleans? Are they no longer the Aints?
Yeah. And then with Atlanta, now you have two lefty quarterbacks on your roster. Kevin Stefanski must have something for lefties.
Well, no, here's the thing. Everybody's making fun of Kevin Stefanski in Cleveland, saying have fun with a lefty too. I loved this move for the Falcons. You know why, Josh? What did I say Michael Penix was when he came out of college? He's a stronger version of Tua. I mean, that's exactly what he is. So to have Tua even to start the season, because who knows if Michael Penix is going to be ready. You know, you have Tua on the cheap. The Dolphins are paying his salary and paying for Malik Willis because they have no idea what the hell they're doing. And so if Tua Tagovailoa, listen, he's got Drake London, he's got Bijan Robinson, you know, he's got I know they went out, they signed John Dodson from Philadelphia. You have a good Kyle Pitts is still there. You have a guy who I do think can coach quarterbacks in Kevin Stefanski. What if Tua just takes this shot from Michael Penix and Michael Penix never sees the field again? It's possible.
It definitely is. You're 100% right. But, you know, Michael Penix has injury issues. Tua
has frozen on my screen, Josh, by the way. Oh, there you go. He just came back.
Tua has injury issues. So I just don't get this. So that's what I'm saying. I don't get this move for the Falcons. I really don't. Like I just said, Michael Penix can't stay healthy. Tua can't stay healthy. and they're both lefties. I like.
Here's the thing, though. You always sign Tua to a 1-year deal. If neither of them work out, guess what? You may not have your first round pick this year, but you have it next year. And so you can go in the quarterback class again, and Kevin Stefanski could pick his quarterback if you really don't like what you see out of Penix or Tua. But if you like one of them, and especially if Tua is the guy, I wouldn't pay Tua a massive contract, and I said it on the year when he got paid. I think it's a mistake because I think Tua is one concussion away from potentially life career consequences. But who am I to tell someone he can't play football? I think this is a good story, and I think he's in a good climate. Obviously, a dome. We'll see how the NFC South shakes up. And I actually think Tua, if he plays, could have a really good year. Very similar to what he did in Miami, where he put up all those numbers in the first 2-3 years under Mike McDaniel.
Well, speaking of Tua's former team, the Miami Dolphins,
Huh.
I have to ask the question: are the Miami Dolphins becoming the Miami Packers? Because let's see, they go out and they hire Jeff Hafley, who was the Green Bay Packers defensive coordinator. Their general manager comes from the Packers, excuse me. And now they signed Malik Willis, who was the Green Bay Packers backup quarterback.
And who has 6 career starts. And by the way, Malik Willis is a great story because he went from unable to throw a pass in, 2022 with the Tennessee Titans. Remember they played that game against Kansas City? It was a Sunday night game, and they went to overtime, and Malik Willis basically completed 7 passes, and they just handed the ball off to Derrick Henry because he literally could not throw. He's gone from that to he's a starting quarterback in Miami.
Yeah, but I don't know what to make of, for the sake of the topic, I'm going to continue to say it. I don't know what to make of the Miami Packers. Like, what did they see in Green Bay that they're like, oh, let's bring it down to Miami?
Well,
like, what?
In defense
What's
of that,
next? They're good. Okay, go.
In defense of that, Malik Willis played very well in the past 2 years when he's gotten the opportunity to. We all remember the game against the Colts. He played well when he filled in for Jordan Love in that game against Chicago. Played well in that game against the Ravens last year. And Jeff Hafley, former head coach of Boston College, so he's been a head coach before. For the last 2 years, he has seen Malik Willis in practice every single day. And I will also add this. From what I have read and listened to, Malik Willis is one of the most humble, one of the most gracious, one of the most bitter guys in the locker room. Diana Rossini was saying that when she was at ESPN, she was assigned to cover a Titan training camp, and she met Malik Willis for the first time. And Malik Willis is one of the only players in the whole NFL who went up to her camera crew and was talking to them, asking them what they did, asking them what it was like to be behind the scenes. And the PR guy kept going like this, telling him, Malik, we don't have all day. And he basically said, I don't care. I want to talk to these people. So what I'm telling you is he's got the makeup to be the right stuff. I always liked him. I always called him Lamar Jackson Jr. I thought he was really good coming out of Louisville. I don't know if he's going to be a franchise quarterback or not, but I don't think this is the worst move in the world.
Right. But what are they going to do next? Like, turn Hard Rock Stadium into Lambeau Stadium, Lambeau Field South?
If you have your franchise quarterback, everything is in place. It doesn't matter. You will get right in the NFL. Look at the Commanders. Look at the Patriots. They went from a dumpster fire, and we weren't even sure about their coach, to being in the Super Bowl or being in the NFC Championship game because they have a quarterback. Cincinnati's ownership was complete garbage. People think Zach Taylor can't coach. Joe Burrow's second year, they made the Super Bowl with no offensive line.
Which I still say gave them false confidence. But
maybe it did. But guess what? The Browns have never made a Super Bowl. The Jaguars have never made a Super Bowl. The Texans, the Lions have never made Super Bowls. The Dolphins haven't made a Super Bowl, I don't believe, since 1973, the year after the 1972 Miami Dolphins. Like, they're in a tough division. They got to deal with Josh Allen. They got to deal with Drake May. The Jets are a lost freaking cause. But I don't know what to make of the Dolphins, but the one thing I do know, they're fascinating.
It's just funny that like like I said, they've basically become the Miami Packers.
For their sake, I hope Malik Willis works out because they made a mistake with Tua. I know we had a conversation on the air when it happened. I was never a fan of Tua, even in Alabama. I did not think Tua could be a legit franchise quarterback. And for the record, I know we just talked about the last segment. I still, in my heart of hearts, do not think that, but who knows? But I think Malik Willis is better today than Tua.
Yeah, I agree. And they have Jalen Waddle still there. They have Devon A-Chain. So I like their offense.
Now here's my take. You already are gonna let go of Tyreek Hill. I would trade Jalen Waddle. I know it seems counterproductive because you want to give your quarterback weapons. I understand that. But Jalen Waddle's making a lot of money for a team that doesn't have answers right now. So to me, you move off Jalen Waddle. You get either a late first or a second round pick from a team. You can draft multiple receivers. You can go out, you can get a tight end. Their offensive line's not bad. They need skill position work and they need work on the back end. I think Jalen Waddle is a very good player. I don't think for the kind of money he's making, he fits Miami's long-term and short-term goals right now.
Maybe you continue the Green Bay theme and you call the Packers and say, you want to do a Jalen Waddle for Romeo Doubs swap.
How can they do that when Romeo Doubs is a Patriot?
Oh, yeah, that's right. So never mind. I forgot about that.
No, it's okay because I didn't hear about the Rico Dowdle thing. NFL free agency is what NBA free agency used to be. It's wild. I call it, before March Madness became good with all these stars now, I used to call it the real March Madness.
Yeah. No, but that's going to be funny to see Romeo Doubs not wearing the, inflated Packers helmet, and instead it's going to be an inflated Patriots helmet.
Yeah, the Guardian cap, which I used to call him Balloon Boy. You can always tell where he's out of the field. That's one good thing.
Yeah. So maybe, okay, so let me rephrase. Maybe the Dolphins call the Packers and say, hey, you want to do a Christian Watson for Jalen Waddle swap?
All right, well, we're going to switch gears now. We're going to go to the National Basketball Association because Bam Adebayo on Tuesday night scored the second most points in the history of an NBA game, right behind Will Chamberlain's 100 points. He surpasses Kobe Bryant's 81 that he scored over Jalen Rose in 2006. The 62 points in 3 quarters was amazing. I think he had like 41 points at half, 31 in the first quarter. Then the fourth quarter, did the Heat pull a little bit of NBA 2K and try to massage it? Yeah, they did. But he still scored 83 points. Nobody else has done it.
Yeah, and, people are criticizing it, saying, oh, it was against the Washington Wizards, and he took a ridiculous amount of free throws, and who cares? I certainly would not have expected Bam Adebayo to score 83.
That's part of the issue too. Like, if it was Ja Morant, LeBron, Jason Tatum, Victor Wembanyama, Nikola Jokic, Steph Curry, you name it, any of the stars, Bam Adebayo is a very good player. Nobody has ever considered him the best player on the Heat.
Yeah, everybody has said that honor goes to Tyler Hero, and he was out.
Jimmy Butler, and Bam Adebayo has been to 2 NBA Finals, and I thought he played well defensively against Anthony Davis and Nikola Jokic in both those finals. He's been a very good player, but his career average is 18 points. Now, The one thing I have always said is, now that Donovan Mitchell scored 70 once in a game a few years ago, and Devin Booker, I think, got 70 in a game a couple years ago, and everybody was flipping out and saying, oh my God, this is amazing. My problem is in the NBA, I think scoring has gotten easier. So I think like 50 is what 40 used to be. 60 now is what 50 used to be, et cetera, et cetera. But 83, I mean, it makes you think, if somebody wanted to, honest to God, I truly believe this. I think with the way the NBA game is going, in the next decade, somebody could score 100 points and break Will Chamberlain's record.
I agree with you.
I think shooting is a lot better. I think the 3-point shot makes it astronomically easier, especially if you're hot from three. But what this accomplishment does is it's like the greatest 3-point shooter ever, Steph Curry, never got remotely close to this number. Victor Wembanyama we don't know yet. LeBron, I think the most he ever scored in a game was 61. That time he was wearing the black mask as a member of the Heat against the Charlotte Hornets.
Bobcats.
I guess they were still the Bobcats at the time. Michael Jordan, I think, scored, what was it, 61-ish against the Celtics in that 1980-something series. I don't remember the year, the one where Larry Bird said he was God disguised in sneakers. It's pretty wild to think that in the record books, it's Bam Adebayo. And I also think people have a problem with, because God rest his soul, he's now no longer with us. It's like you're passing Kobe, and then once he got past Kobe, they took him out of the game, which almost makes it like like they were going after Kobe's record. I think people would have been better off with go for Wilt's record.
Yeah. And it's not like Washington was playing any defense either.
By the way, do you know that the oldest player in the Wizards starting lineup that night was 22 years old? It's a college team. I think Michigan college basketball was older than the Washington Wizards.
The Wizards are trash. They really are. The game
next year they're going to have Trae Young and Anthony Davis, though, but the NBA's got a tanking problem.
Yay. They'll both find a way to get injured because they're injury-prone players. So I don't really care. No, that's why I love it, because it was somebody we didn't expect. Like you said, I would have expected somebody like Anthony Edwards or a younger Stephen Curry, not 37-year-old Steph, but maybe like Steph when he first came into the league.
I think Wemby's got a chance to do it.
Yeah,
I actually do.
You're making my point for me, so I appreciate that. Somebody like a Wemby, Jason Tatum, if he was fully healthy, maybe Jaylen Brown, SGA, possibly.
I mean, Donovan Mitchell could. The guys that are pure scorers. I don't think of Tatum as like a pure scorer. I think Kevin Durant in his prime could have done it, though. If he was hot one night. I do want to say this. I love the way, because NBC was airing Celtic Spurs on Tuesday night, and they would cut in, and talk about the history and show the game why. I love the way that NBC celebrated the moment. They didn't bring the moment down by, because again, this is going to make a shot, and I apologize to people at ESPN, but this is the truth. If ESPN, in my opinion, was airing this, Kenny Smith, Charles Barkley, and Shaquille O'Neal would have said, well, that would have never happened back in our day because we would have knocked him to the floor and would have never allowed it to happen.
Oh, yeah. First Take was like completely overanalyzing it. And I'm like, can we just celebrate the piece of history that we just saw?
Well, here's the thing. He's going to be a Jeopardy question. Who, and maybe it's not who has the second, most high scoring game, but who scored 83 points in the NBA game in 2026. So Bam Adebayo, I joke every time that the NBA Hall of Fame is actually the Basketball Hall of Fame, that anybody gets in the Hall of Fame. Bam Adebayo pretty much became a famous person overnight. Good for him.
Yes. By the way, it's not called the NBA Hall of Fame. It is the Basketball
That's
Hall
what I
of
mean.
Fame.
It's called the Basketball Hall of Fame. Which
Yeah,
why you can
so
make an argument that based off last night, Bam Adebayo was getting in the Basketball Hall of Fame on Tuesday night.
maybe, but you know, it was kind of an important game for Miami because they're the number 6 seed, so they're just inside the playoffs, so they're trying to stay in there. But overall, I didn't feel like Wizards Heat was this hugely important game on a Tuesday night. I looked at it and I'm like, okay, the Wizards are playing the Heat. So what?
I do think Miami intentionally missing free throws and then fouling people to try to get the ball back to Bam, that was a little excessive at the end.
Yeah, I agree with. But when you're chasing history like that, I understand it.
To me, it's different being in a video game than it is in real life. I said this on Brandon's World on Tuesday. In baseball, we often talk about the unwritten rules a lot. We don't talk a lot in football and basketball because in football, really the only unwritten rule is when you take a knee, don't try to grab the ball and don't try to start a fight. In basketball, I would say the unwritten rule is when you're up 20 with a minute left, dribble the clock out, don't foul, don't extend the game, don't try to run up the score. It did feel like, I think, a little bit to some people like Miami was breaking some of those rules.
Yeah. You talked about it, though. Like, NBC went away from a potential finals preview. We'll get into that here in a second. And they showed, like, the start of the fourth quarter with Bam Adebayo, and they showed, like, him making the free throws, which, how did you feel about him breaking the record via free throws?
Again, you can score by free throws in basketball. It happens. I saw the funniest tweet from Barstool Sports that basically said that SGA wishes this was him and not Bam Adebayo. But you can score from free throws. I did not like that he shot 43 free throws. I'll say that. Again, I did feel like if you're going to break the record, don't shoot 37 or make 37 or how many free throws it was. It just did feel like towards the fourth quarter was getting too obvious.
Yeah.
I would compare it to, like, in baseball, if a guy has 4 home runs, and in order to get a fifth, the guy lobs the ball right down the middle and lets him hit it. Like, you don't want to break the record that way.
Okay, I know we're talking about the NBA, but I love this comment. Raiders got bent over the barrel, and then not even a first kiss.
They could be better off, though. I don't know if that's fair to say.
It's funny, though, so I wanted to show it anyway.
Fair enough. All right, well, you mentioned it, though. The Boston Celtics, boy, have they looked good. Me and Jalen may be wrong on Jason Tatum. Now, who knows? Tatum came back Friday night. I thought he looked okay. Certainly thought he looked a lot better Sunday. I still would argue I would have not played him Sunday against the Cavs if I was Boston, because we still don't know how he is going to recover long term. I think it'll be interesting to see how they get into the playoffs and utilize him in series. But they are certainly, when they shoot the ball, I'll say it like this. When they shoot the ball the way they did 2 years ago, they can beat anybody on any given night. I still don't know if in the West, I think they match up well against an Oklahoma City. But if they were to match up against like a Jokic or a Wemby, I don't think they have the answer to stop San Antonio or Denver in a 7-game series.
The two biggest things that came out of Tuesday's game for me in San Antonio were, one, Victor Wembanyama made 8 3-pointers, which that's not usually his game to step out and shoot the 3-pointer.
And he took 15, mostly because Boston would outwon him in the lane, which I think is more of an NBA issue than a Celtic issue. I get why Boston did it. I just don't want a big man of that stature taking 15 threes a game, even though he made 8 of them, which is insane.
Yes. And then, of course, the other big story was Jaylen Brown getting ejected.
Yeah.
Whether that was...
Which
Go
to
ahead.
me, by the way, took some sting out of this game, because then it's like, well, what do I make of this game now?
Yeah, I agree. I personally did not like that he got ejected, though I understood why. It wasn't even... Here's the thing. It wasn't even the official who teed him up the first time that ended up ejecting him. Because I believe the official who ejected him was Terry Ford, if I remember his name, or who gave him his first technical.
Yeah, I'm not sure on that front. So.
Was Terry Ford, if I remember correctly. And then it was a different ref who gave him his second tee because he would not calm down and he came towards the refs. So I agree. But now tonight, they're in Oklahoma City taking on the reigning defending NBA champions in the Oklahoma City Thunder. Interestingly, the Thunder are a 7.5 point favorite tonight.
Is this their first matchup this year?
I'm looking. Yes,
I believe it is.
No. So, oh man, you know how you were talking about Jason Tatum potentially not playing?
Is he out tonight?
Damn it.
Well, do they have a back-to-back tomorrow? I don't have their schedule in front of me.
So they're at Oklahoma City tonight. No, they don't play again until Saturday against Washington.
So they want them to rest a little bit and then play against the easy team in Washington. What's also interesting is that no one's talking about they lost Vucevic now for the next month, which is a big piece for them going off the bench.
Yeah, Derek White's a game-time decision for them. Vucevic is out, like you said, until March 29th. OKC still without Jalen Williams, no Isaiah Hartenstein, and the other two guys are injured.
I wonder if Jaylen Brown ball hogs a little bit tonight, because I think Jaylen Brown's going to want to try to make an MVP statement tonight.
No, it's interesting you say that, because that's also part of the reason I'm frustrated that he got ejected from that game on Tuesday against San Antonio, because, I was saying Cade Cunningham for a while was the leading candidate for MVP, but, and again, I hate this conversation with, is Jaylen Brown the lead man or is Jason Tatum the lead man? I have to say Jaylen Brown is the leading candidate, at least for me, in terms of MVP. Nobody expected Boston to be second in the Eastern Conference with Jason Tatum out. We both had them.
I agree, especially if they catch Detroit, because did you see all of a sudden they're only 3.5 back?
Yeah, but it feels like Detroit's going to hang on and clinch the number 1 seed.
Here's the thing for me. If the Spurs catch OKC and they get the 1 seed, I think you have to give the MVP to Wemby.
I agree. From everything I've read, SGA is the leading candidate for MVP again. Okay.
The NBA likes to give back-to-back MVPs, and then the next year, all of a sudden, they go, it doesn't matter what you do. You can't win it again.
Yeah. But I'm just like, again, I hate the conversation of, is it Jason Tatum's team? Is it Jaylen Brown's?
Well, here's the problem with the MVP conversation. Remember a couple years ago, Russell Westbrook won it because he got a triple-double and nobody had ever done it since Oscar. And then last year, Jokic averaged a triple-double, but he already won 2 MVPs, so we can't give it to him again. And SGA is having such a great season. Jokic obviously has missed time this year, and Denver has struggled since he came back, but he's also averaging another triple-double again this year. And everybody's like, yeah, he can't win MVP again.
Yeah.
So that's why I have an issue with the MVP, because I think it's bias especially in the NBA. The NFL is too, but not as much. I think it's biased. I think it is.
Oh, I think it's worse in the NFL.
I don't think it's reflective of who the MVP of the week actually is, because it's all about value. Which I think this year you could make the case Wemby and Jaylen Brown and Cade Cunningham are the three most valuable players in the league.
Oh, I 100% agree. And the reason I disagree with you about the NFL is because it's always the damn quarterback who wins MVP.
Well, the problem is because they are the most valuable position in all of sports, and that includes major, college, whatever.
I just hate it because it feels like, no, the quarterback is not always the most important position.
I mean, you cannot win a Super Bowl if you have a top. If your quarterback is average, you cannot win a Super Bowl. I honestly believe that.
Sam Darnold wasn't an elite quarterback, and yet Seattle still won.
He was. Sam Darnold played like a top 5 quarterback this year. He absolutely did.
But he's not considered a top 5 quarterback.
I would say now Sam Darnold's a top 10 quarterback. I absolutely would.
We'll see. But getting back to this, you know, he comes back against Dallas. Okay, whatever. Then he plays on the road in Cleveland, which whether the Cavs are legit or not, I truly don't know.
It's going to come down to toughness. And I thought that game, the Cavs just missed a bunch of open shots. Again, I think series are so different than these individual games.
Yeah. And like the Cavs trailed by as many as 20 in that game against Boston.
I like this comment from Grandizer, by the way.
Yeah, I do too.
Thank you, Grandizer. By the way, Grandizer, anytime you want to come on the show, hit us up.
Grandizer, I'll tell you this. Now that my schedule is not as chaotic, I plan on getting back to making a lot more content and doing what I do best. So be on the lookout for that.
But to wrap this conversation up, because I know we're going to talk about SGA in a minute, if you ask me today, again, I know it goes against the grain because they haven't had playoff experience. I get it. Sometimes I think rules are meant to be broken. Today, I think the Spurs are winning the NBA title. And that could change within the next month, but that's how I feel today.
Does it scare you at all that their core doesn't have a lot of playoff experience? Because
that's what I just said. It should, but when I watch them, they play great defense. They shoot the three. They have great guard play. Wemby is an alien, and I can't get it out of my head. How are you going to beat that guy 4 times in 7 games?
I'll tell you who I think is the key for the Spurs. It's not Wemby. For me, it is Stephon Castle. Because we know what we're typically going to get from Wemby each game, but if Castle can continuously step up and give you 20-plus points a game, it's a lot harder to beat the Spurs. Because
no, it is true. We talked about it with Denver when they won the title. We knew what we were going to get from Jokic. It all came down to what you were going to get from Jamal Murray and Michael Porter and Bruce Brown and those guys.
Exactly. So it's that supporting cast. Like, it's the same thing with Boston when they won the finals 2 years ago. You knew what you were going to get from Jaylen Brown. You knew what you were going to get from Jason Tatum. But what were you going to get from the others?
Well, that team was a little different, I would argue, just because they were so deep. I mean, some nights Porzingis didn't even have to play, and they could just stomp you.
Yeah. Okay. No, on that topic, though, when I look back at, like, why LeBron had so much success with the Miami Heat and in his second stint with the Cavs, it wasn't just because those teams had strong supporting casts around them, but it's because those teams surrounded him with shooters. Think about it. In Miami,
Shane Battier, Ray Allen,
Mario Chalmers,
James Jones, Mike Miller. Cleveland, it was obviously JR, Delhi, Shumpert, and Shumpert was a great, those are the other thing. Those guys, Mike Miller, James Jones, Shumpert, great defenders. Boston, Pritchard, great defender. Hauser, great defender. OKC, you have Lou Dort, great defender.
Yes.
Both Jalen Williams, great defenders. Caruso, great defender. At San Antonio, that's the biggest question is, can these young guys defend?
For me, it's also, if Wemby gets double teamed, is he going to be able to pass it out to Devin Vassell, Dylan Harper, Stephon Castle, and can they shoot it? Because like I said, that to me was a huge reason why LeBron was successful with Miami and with Cleveland, because he could spray it out to Shane Battier, Ray Allen, Mike Miller, Mario Chalmers, J.R. Smith, James Jones. You get, think about that Orlando team that we lost to in the Eastern Conference Finals. Dwight Howard had
Rasheed Lewis,
Rashard Lewis.
Rashard, yeah, but I think it was spelled Rasheed, but I know he said it a different way. Jameer Nelson.
Exactly. So I want to see if San Antonio can become that type of team. Not that they have to become this prolific three-point shooting team. That's not what I'm saying. But what I am saying is, if he gets double-teamed, can he rely on Stephon Castle if he passes it out to him to take the mid-range shot? You know what I mean?
Before we get to SGA, I want to wrap up on San Antonio, and I want to say this. I don't care what round we get it in, if it's in the first, second, or the conference finals. This year, I want a playoff series between San Antonio and Denver. Yes. I want to see what I believe is the two best big men that I've ever personally watched. I know Jalen, who was on the show last week, and we had a great show last week, obviously.
I think we gave him bronchitis.
Yeah. I know Jalen loves Shaq and thinks that Shaq is the greatest center ever and most dominant. I get it. I have never seen anybody play the game the way Wemby and Jokic play, and I think we need that playoff series.
I will tell you this. If both teams are fully healthy, if we get a Spurs Thunder Western Conference Finals, remember how you and I had that conversation? Is Rams Seahawks the real Super Bowl? Remember that conversation?
Yes.
I will say it right here, right now. If we get Spurs Thunder in the Western Conference Finals, to me, that's the real NBA Finals.
I feel like the Western Conference second round could be the NBA Finals. Thunder, T-Wolves, Spurs, Nuggets, or Rockets maybe in there. One of those teams. Maybe Denver gets beaten. Houston's in there. But it just feels like that Western Conference starting in the second round is going to be tremendous basketball.
Yeah. The Eastern Conference, it feels like we know who the four teams are. Cleveland, Detroit, Boston, New York. But I feel like, remember I said a couple weeks back, Detroit's the favorite. I don't feel that way anymore. I feel like Boston is now the favorite. I would probably say Cleveland is number 2, even though we've been a little bit inconsistent lately. I would say Detroit is number 3. I would put New York number 4. And then
I think the Knicks are built for the playoffs. I think the Knicks are going to surprise a lot of people in the playoffs.
We'll see. But it feels like the Eastern Conference, it's more interchangeable. Like, we think it's one thing, but then, nope, it changes, and it's now a different order. With the West, you could put, I guess it's also interchangeable, but it feels like there's more clear separation that it's, for me, it's OKC, San Antonio, Denver. Don't trust Houston.
And it's crazy. Denver's almost dropping down to the play-in. But do you remember what I told you last year around the Thunder Pacers series, where everybody was saying, "Oh, the Thunder, they could be the next dynasty. Oh, they're built to last." And I said, "You better win the title this year, because next year the West is only going to get better, and there is no guarantee that you will get back. You may have this great team. There's other great teams in the West too.
Yeah. Minnesota is still lurking.
Absolutely. The thing about Minnesota is, do you know this? There's only been 3 teams in the history of the NBA that have lost the conference finals back-to-back years and then made the finals the next year. One of them was the 2000 Pacers. I don't think any of them have won the title. I could be wrong on that.
Ant needs a title. He really does.
I agree. Well, a guy that already has a title, and we talked about Will Chamberlain has got more talk on this show and this week than maybe he ever has before in his whole life over the last 50 years. Because all of a sudden, Bam Adebayo changed his record, and LSGA tonight could break a record by Will Chamberlain by scoring the most consecutive 20-point games at 126. And I'm the guy on the show who loves to take shots at SGA, call him a free-throw merchant. I said earlier in the show, it's easier to score nowadays. You know, the new 60, I feel like, is like what 50 used to be. The new 70 is what 60 used to be, etc. The fact that Michael Jordan never got close to this record, LeBron never, we talked about the historic landscape of this record. This is so impressive to me. And at this young of age, it also shows the durability that SGA has. So this should absolutely be slighted. This is not a knock at SGA, even though do I think he gets a lot of calls the way James Harden used to? I absolutely believe yes is the case. But like you've told me a lot, he makes the most out of his opportunities, and that's clear in this record.
Yeah. I personally do not believe he's a free throw merchant. I think he's just that good overall. And he's able to make the defense make mistakes. I think he's just that good.
And the thing about SGA is this. People don't realize this. His first year in the league was not on the Thunder. His rookie year, he was a Clipper.
The Clippers have to be kicking themselves for that whole thing because they're the reason the Thunder are where they are right now, without a doubt.
Yeah, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe he was the pick that ended up being in because of the Kawhi Leonard trade.
He didn't get Kawhi. No, it was the Paul George trade.
Oh, the Paul George trade. Yes, but it was linked to the Kawhi Leonard situation.
Like, it was because Kawhi had signed with
the Clippers.
Yep. And he said, go get me Paul George.
Yep. And so, the Clippers' decision in 2019 may have changed the NBA forever.
Yeah.
But again, this is not me taking shots at SGA. This, to me, should almost be more celebrated than Bam Adebayo scoring 83. I think this is more impressive.
I agree, because we kind of expect it out of SGA.
Well, it's not bad. I mean, you think of LeBron went how many games scoring 10 plus? That streak broke this year. And people are, it's 10 points. Sometimes in the NBA, you get double teamed, or you get hurt, or you don't have your shot. I mean, there are so many circumstances. You get 2 fouls or early in a game. You got to sit down for a half.
Yeah, you're 100% right. And SGA has been injured throughout this season. He's had like abdominal issues, I think it was.
Yeah. But again, the fact that he is able to break this record, which I think is like 126 something games, which is the equivalent of 1.5 or somewhere around there, full seasons. And he's played, 70 games mostly, if you will, because that's like the new 82, because no one really plays 82 anymore. Throughout his entire career, it does show durability, even though he's been out for 2 weeks this year.
Yeah. Did you hear, speaking of like length of schedule and all that, did you hear about Steve Kerr's press conference with the Warriors where he was saying the season's too long?
No, but it's one thing that I've been preaching. And I think if the NBA is going to expand to 32 teams, you can make up that revenue with shortening the season by the new 2 teams.
Which, if they do expand, obviously they'll have to redo the divisions because Minnesota's most likely going to move to the Eastern Conference. You'd have to put OKC in the Southwest Division with San Antonio, Houston, and Dallas geographically. But I will say this. If Minnesota does move to the Eastern Conference, they'd have to be in the division with Detroit, Chicago, Milwaukee. I want Cleveland in that division as well. I know a lot of conversations are Cleveland would be in a division with like Philadelphia, Washington, and somebody else, but I'm just like, no, I want the Cavs in the same division as both the Pistons and the Bulls.
How about this? If you want divisions to matter, how about you do what baseball and the NFL does, which is if you win your division, you automatically get a top 4 seed, even if your record is, let's say, 5th in the conference.
Yeah, I would agree. That's part of the reason why I hate the Stanley Cup playoff format, because like we're gonna get the Dallas Stars against the Minnesota Wild in the first round because they're the number 2 and number 3 in the Central Division, and yet those are 2 of the best teams in the NHL. That's not a first round matchup. That's more like a conference semifinals or a Western Conference finals matchup. So I hate it.
This may not have been the most explosive show in the world like it was with Jalen last week, but we had a fantastic show tonight. And next week, it's the one time a year we get to do this, Josh, the one and only time we get to unveil our brackets.
Yes, we do. March Madness is coming. By the way, Miami of Ohio is out. They lost today in the quarterfinals.
They are. Do you really think they're going to kick them out of the entire tournament?
They're probably going to go from like an 8 seed or a 9 seed to an 11 seed, maybe one of those teams playing in the first 4 games.
I mean, they could do that. I don't see a world where they're completely out at 68.
I think the MAC is now going to get 2 teams in.
They absolutely should. And again, though, this is why, a whole nother rant for another show. This is why I don't like conference tournaments in college basketball.
Yeah, because a bunch of the teams who lose in the conference tournament, guess what? They're still getting in.
And guess what? Duke doesn't even have to play, and they're going to be a number 1 seed. If I'm Duke, I'm not playing my guys.
Yeah, I agree.
So, but that's another conversation for another show next week. We're going to unveil our brackets. We'll talk everything in sports. I'm sure more NFL news, more NBA news may drop. Historic news may be going down tonight in the NBA with SGA. But until then, as always, we are in collaboration with the one, the only Voltage Live. You can follow us on all of the social medias, X, Instagram, Facebook, right here on YouTube at Championship Rings, as well as the Ungar to the Max YouTube channel. I am Brandon Lewis, the host of Brandon's World. He is Josh Ungar, Ungar to the Max, host of this World from Talk Show. Until next week, peace.
Bye-bye.